I don't often come across pieces of music that I have a hard time expressing my enjoyment or distaste for. Sometimes this can take a bit of analyzing and dissecting, but even without going super in-depth, I can usually figure out the gist of why I feel a particular way about a piece of music just from listening to it a few times, and the analysis really only serves as extra information and a more visually expressive method of explaining myself. So it was kind of a weird feeling when I couldn't put my finger on why I liked Mushoku Tensei's ending so much. Anime endings don't really get as much attention as openings, and in fairness, I think it's because openings tend to be the more interesting songs. There are obvious exceptions to this, and I'd be lying if I said I enjoyed the ending from Mushoku Tensei more than I did its openings, but something about it kept drawing me back in, and for the first time in quite a while, I wasn't really able to figure out an exact reason for why this was. As with the opening, the ending was composed, written, and performed by Ohara Yuiko, making this one of the rare cases in which she is the only performer to have contributed all of a single anime's openings and endings. Taking a quick look at the lyrics, it's plain to see that this is a love song, and a fairly standard one at that. There aren't any overly abstract or metaphorical lyrics, and even without understanding Japanese, the actual delivery of these words makes sure that the audience is aware that there is a raw sense of pleading and bearing of emotion. Getting into the music, the song opens with some simple guitar strumming. Acoustic guitars are often used to create a sense of human connection in a way that feels much more intimate and personal than orchestral strings or a piano might, and so this intro puts us in an intimate headspace despite the non-specific emotion conveyed by the strumming pattern. Oddly enough, the entire first verse is played and sung over an A minor chord, utilizing slash chords to give the music a bit of variation without actually moving away from our tonic A minor. Despite the guitars putting us in an intimate headspace, there's nothing particularly romantic or heartfelt about this opening section, as the music doesn't really feel like it's going anywhere. To roughly tie this into the anime, we can attribute this to Rudy's early mental state in that he is living life in this new world and going through the motions, but the memories of his past life are keeping him from experiencing all of this properly, anchoring him to the root of his own fears. This is merely a rough interpretation, given that it doesn't have much to do with the lyrics coming up, but it serves as a simple basis for which to ground ourselves in the song. Over the first 16 bars, each instrument gradually gets added in, starting with the lead acoustic guitar, likely played by Ohara, with a second acoustic guitarist playing in some simple melodic flourishes. Bar 4 introduces a simple bass guitar drone on A, while the drummer lightly taps on the ride cymbal, and this all comes together as the drums play in from bar 9, also replacing the second acoustic guitar with an electric guitar. On paper, this looks and seems like a long time for the introduction to play out without any singing, but given the quick tempo of the song, this relatively long introduction goes by fairly quickly. When Ohara eventually comes in, she sings the words, "Ai no iroha o manande mo te ni irarenai no nanno." Even though I learned about love, I don't seem to get it. The translation makes sense on its own, but it's actually the way it's worded in Japanese that ties the ending to the opening, ultimately creating a deeper sense of relevance that connects these songs to the story as a whole. The final line of the opening is "Itsukushimi hitotsu koishisa o moteba te ni suru ai," roughly translating to "if you hold on to something you cherish, this is love," with the "this is love" part transliterating more to obtained love or a love held in one's hands. Whoa, deja vu. This is mirrored, or rather continued, in the first line of the ending's words, "I don't seem to get it," transliterating as "I can't keep hold of it." As in the opening, this points to the idea that whatever form of love this person is meant to be receiving or obtaining is something that they don't fully understand, as the wording implies that they view love as some sort of tangible concept. Like I mentioned in the opening analysis, the anime hasn't gotten far enough to fully explain what this love or affection might mean to Rudy, and I haven't read the source material, so for now I can only assume that this will become clearer with the anime's second part coming up. The following line repeats the simple A minor melody from before, ending with the simple phrase "Anata ga hoshii," I want you. This is the first real indication that this is in fact meant to be a love song, and this becomes much clearer from here on out. I mentioned before that we could roughly interpret the A minor anchor as Rudy's stagnation in this second life, but if we now take these first two lyrical lines into account, it seems less directly tied to his past, focusing on the lack of understanding he or whoever the song is about has regarding the concept of love despite knowing all about it theoretically. This section is followed by a pre-chorus consisting of some English lines mixed in amongst the Japanese lyrics to create a bilingual call and response pattern. This is mirrored in the way the music also finally begins moving in meaningful ways, shifting from the continuous A minor section into F major 7 to G for the call if you do, followed by E minor back to F major 7, completing the response with Nandatte kowaku nai kara, I'm not afraid of anything. The call pattern repeats again for if you will, but drastically shifts the response into a more emotional delivery for senaka o makasete, I'll have your back, utilizing the G sharp from the A minor melodic scale to heighten the drama and impact of the upcoming chorus. The chorus is where things really start getting interesting, especially when we take a look at the lyrics as well as the rhythmic patterns used to emphasize the words in different ways. From the pre-chorus final syllable, Ohara wastes no time getting straight into the first line of the chorus, Kowashitai, kowashite shimaitai anata no tame nara, meaning I'd break, I'd destroy if it's for you. Common of pop music, the words begin just before the downbeats, creating an anticipatory suspension for the listener to latch onto, and as a stylistic touch, each part emphasizes the second syllable by placing it on the high D before descending down for the rest of the word or phrase. Because tonal emphasis doesn't exist in Japanese, at least not to the same degree it does in English, syllabic placement can basically be done however the songwriter wants in order to achieve the proper artistic emphasis. In this case, allowing the second syllables to stand out even if that means truncating 2 or 3 sounds into one note value. This emphasis on the second syllable only occurs for the first line, however, as we see it start shifting about in the next few lines. But more importantly, this sets up the rhythmic and melodic pattern that starts just before the downbeat, leading into a fairly syncopated descending rhythm, creating a sort of pleading sound as if the one saying these lines is begging their loved one to let them stay by their side. Harmonically, the first 2 lines of the chorus are fairly straightforward, shifting around F major 7, G, E minor, and A minor, bouncing back and forth between major and minor chords while making sure to use the minor 5-1 cadence from E to A so that we aren't too drawn towards the relative major C in a major 4-5-1 motion. By making sure to land back down on the A minor chord, the somewhat aggressive lyrics are supported, the first line being about breaking things if it's for the loved one's sake, and the second, Fujunmo mujunmo misakai nante nai, stating that it doesn't matter if what I'm doing is impure or contradictory. These lyrics don't sound too different from any standard love song, but the delivery makes them feel much more intense, and with the acoustic guitar mostly drowned out by the 2 electric guitars, bass, and drums, far less romantic than the intimate words alone would have you believe. The 3rd and 4th lines of the chorus combine to form the complete phrase, Mamoritai, mamoritai no wa subete o oshiete kureta anata dake. I want to protect you. The only one I want to protect is you, the one who taught me everything. This begins by playing around with the emphases on the different parts of the word mamoritai, the most basic way of saying I want to protect you. First, it begins by emphasizing mo, the second syllable in the word, followed by ma on the repetition and tai for the 3rd emphasis, creating an effect similar to how we might put emphasis on different words in English for different effect. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, this isn't really a thing in Japanese and mostly just creates an interesting rhythmic play on the word over the melody we've learned, but it also makes it feel much more powerful as the final emphasis does make sure to emphasize tai, the part of the word that indicates a desire to perform an action, in this case protection. Harmonically, this section also changes to match the sort of rising intensity of Ohara's pleading lyrics, starting on our usual F major 7 to G with the first Mamoritai, but then changes the E minor into an E7 over G sharp, continuing the upward motion by creating a slightly diminished chord sound that still finishes on the A minor, though with the vocal line, this A minor is actually an A minor 7. This keeps the music hanging for a very brief moment before beginning the descent to E minor 7 over G, followed by D7 over F sharp. While this F sharp sounds like it might lead into a key change, we simply return to the same F major 7 to G pattern from before, cutting out as anata dake, only you is sung, the following section repeating the beginning's continuous A minor pattern until the end. While I definitely like this song, it isn't as musically interesting or complex as Tabibito no Uta, and so I find myself still at a bit of a loss as to what drew me to it in the first place. It might be a bit simplistic and cheesy to say, but I think this comes down to a simple enjoyment of how the lyrics were sung, as Ohara's voice crying out the chorus is simply a performance that sounds pleasing, especially with the syncopated rhythms pulling you in with the anticipatory notes and the way the words actually fit into each descending pattern. Even before I'd had a look at the lyrics, the words felt quite meaningful, and now that I've had a chance to read through them, it's quite obvious why they were sung in such a heartfelt manner. Again, I don't know anything beyond what the first part of the anime had to offer, so it's hard to say exactly how this song ties into the story of Mushoku Tensei, though at the same time, it seems quite simple to understand that it is quite fitting. Unlike the opening, which spun a tale meant to sound like bard song, this ending sounds and reads much like an emotional love letter, with the expressions of affection stated in no unclear terms. The band setup is quite modern and standard as a J-rock song, which, if the song itself is meant to tie in heavily to the story, would indicate that the words are meant to be Rudy's, as he is the only character with an understanding of the modern world, meaning the ensemble wouldn't make much sense for the other characters. And because I have a bias for Roxy, my mind immediately jumps to conclusions that these are meant to be Rudy's words to her, Roxy having taught him all about magic at a young age, and Rudy presumably getting stronger physically and magically as he grows up to the point that he can properly protect her from any potential threats. This could also apply to Eris, however, as Rudy serves as her teacher and the leader of their trio when they get warped into the demon continent. And though the anime didn't give Sylphie much time to develop, Rudy also taught her about magic, and I can only assume that their relationship will build whenever he's able to reunite with her in the future. But this is all just speculation on my part, and I could be completely wrong about everything, especially when you take into consideration that the opening wasn't sung from anyone's perspective. I do kind of feel like I cheaped out by saying that the reason I like this song is just because it sounds good, but at the end of the day, isn't an analysis just an overly detailed way of saying that anyway? Even after listening to it every episode, I didn't have much of a basis for why it was drawing me in to begin with, so getting more analytical could only really reveal so much. That said, I've listened to the full version of the song once now, and it's definitely got some cool sections that got cut from the 90-second version. So if you haven't already, go give it a listen and let me know what you think down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the analysis, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel for more content like this, support me on Patreon for transcriptions and other goodies, and follow my other social media accounts. Thanks as always for watching, and I will see you in the next one.